everybody. This is Brady Henderson from the First Baptist Church in Gaston, South Carolina, located in the Midlands of the greatest state in the Union, and you are listening to episode 85 of the Menorah podcast. Today is Thursday, October the 9th. We've had a lot of great episodes recently, Alan. Of course, several weeks ago, we talked about our recent deacon ordination. We interviewed Pastor Austin Williams, and then last week we got to talk with the voice of Paladin football and Greenville Drive baseball. And so today, pretty excited, Alan, somebody that you and I both know and somebody who has served in this area, but we get to talk with Lee Butler. That's going to be super exciting. He has just been named. By the time this airs, it has been a few weeks, and he's already started in the official capacity by now. But the new Associational Mission Strategist, that is the new title, I believe. I still call it DOM. So as I guess that's just by habit. Lee, we're so glad to have you on today.
Oh, it's a blessing to be with you guys. I appreciate the opportunity just to share a little bit about what God's been doing and look forward to this conversation for sure.
Absolutely. Well, of course, Alan, you've known Lee for a while. We've known Lee for a while because he pastored right down here at Faith. Was there for several years and then joined the association. What was your official title, Lee? Associational Mission Strategist? I don't remember what the official title was.
Yeah, so I was the Mission Strategist Associate Director was the official title.
Man, that was a mouthful.
Yeah.
It could get a little bit of a mouthful, and in some circles a little confusing.
Yeah, for sure. I can understand that. Well, now you're the AMS, DOM, however you want to describe that. And so I've been blessed to serve in multiple capacities in our association. I was a member of the search team that was able to follow God's direction. We didn't do anything. We just followed God's direction, leading us to you. And of course, I know you're excited. The vote was unanimous. Everything went well with that. Had a good turnout of the association that day on September the 11th, almost a month ago, this coming Saturday. So, Lee, what are your initial thoughts? How have you hit the ground running?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is exciting because leading up to this, walking through the process with the search team and all that God had allowed me to have the opportunity to be a part of what he was doing in the association already. So many questions once Johnny announced his retirement, hey, are you going to be the next guy? Are you seeking the position? And some questions such as most people would probably imagine right out of the gate. And for me, I just knew it was an opportunity to really lean in to God and say, okay, God, there's a lot of people, including myself, that have some thoughts about this, but God, I need to hear from you. And to have that intimate time spending with him to make sure that, me stepping in this direction was a step of obedience, just a simple step of obedience. God, are you saying for me to take this step or not take this step? And I wish I had so much time to impact all the listeners, just so much that God taught me during that process, but I think I can best sum it up with this way. And you're going to find this hard to believe, not really. God was faithful to everything that he said that he was going to do. Mm-hmm. And just such a great reminder, walking through and experiencing the search team. Brady, I'm so thankful for you guys. It was evident that your heart was for God's will and doing it the right way, doing it in the right timing according to him. And it was just a blessing to be a part of that. And honestly, once the vote took place, and even a little bit before that, just because of life and the associational life being what it is, more to the point, there's always something going on. And so Johnny and I came to a quick agreement that we wanted to be prudent with the transition. We didn't want to lag behind it. We wanted to make sure we served the Association of Churches well, and so it's been a very smooth transition. And everything that I could bring up about the transition is just a very, very positive thing. Johnny, and so generous for the way he's handled his time and he come alongside of me and just help me with the things that I need a little bit of help with that I may not have had, all the pieces of the puzzle, so to speak.
Yeah.
He's been so helpful with that. And I know he's going to continue to be in the days ahead. He's a definite, not just a friend, but a close friend and brother to the association. And so the churches are excited, and I'm excited. And of course, the vote being unanimous was just such a blessing to see God confirming what he had led up to that point. And, we got some new things on the horizon, some things that they're not finalized, planned yet. And with the timing of the podcast coming out, there's some things I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah, sure, sure.
But I will answer every question I can answer.
Absolutely. Well, most people know our church is very involved in association life, and we're very thankful for that. And of course, Beverly Kelly is a volunteer and at the LBA, and she is a
Mhm.
member of our church. I'm involved. Hannah's involved. We've got several others who have done different things with and for the association, and so we just love our partnership. I always say this, but First Baptist Gaston is one of the charter members. We're one of the original 8. Of course, back in 1876 is when the Lexington Association followed the Charleston Association in forming an association, which, of course, historically, I'm sure you know all this. Lexington County was a unique area because it was mostly German settlers. In the beginning, it was mostly Lutheran based churches here, and then, of course, later on, Baptists trickled up from the Charleston area and down from the hills of North Carolina. And so that's kind of how we started having Baptist churches. And next year, we get to celebrate 150 years of the Lexington Baptist Association. So one of the first things you'll have to do, Lee, is get us ready for that.
Yeah, and that is something that has been definitely not at the back of my mind. You got to cross the street before you can get to the other side, and
That's right. You got a lot
I'm
going
usually,
on.
there you go. I'm crossing the street, but hey, I'm looking at the other side, and that's such an exciting thing on the horizon. 150 years, it's not something to sneeze at. And once again, it's just a great reminder of God's faithfulness in all of that as well. So I have no doubt that when the dust settles on the end of that 150 years, we will have celebrated, and to God be the glory. I pray that we have celebrated well all that He's accomplished in and through the churches in that amount of time. So looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, and any help you need from a historical perspective, just let me know. I enjoy that stuff and would love to help any way that I can. So obviously, we talked about the vote. Of course, you and I have met, and budget is by this time already out and approved and everything. So just tell us a little bit. We got a few months left in 2025, and we know anytime the Lord gives us that we can be about His business. So what are the first 90 days? We talk about the first 100 days in regards to a president. But let's talk about the first 90 days. In other words, the rest of 2025 for the new AMS, Lee Butler.
Well, the rest of 2025 is going to be spent in many ways setting the stage for 2026, just to be brutally honest. Now, there'll be some things that'll continue that we've talked about through the end of the year that the association is talking about a while. That will be that mission engagement piece where we're continue through Send Me to encourage churches and specifically to get their pastors leading the churches as God leads them to engage in missional partnerships and ascend cities somewhere around the continental United States. We have been blessed to see churches engage through that. We've seen churches be able to see the great benefit for the people as well as for the kingdom for sure in those type partnerships. And so we'll continue that through the end of the year. That'll be a piece that you may not see a whole lot of transition or movement in right off the bat. Something else that just is a bit of a common thread is that with the vision that I was able to lay out before the association prior to the vote taking place was we're going to continue to have an emphasis on pastoral care, congregational health. And when we think about a lot of our missional emphasis, we really want to encourage churches to think about kingdom collaboration. And by kingdom collaboration, what we mean by that is how can churches, take a look at the community that they serve, what opportunities of working together, linking arm in arm can be taken advantage of that God has just literally laid out before us at the feet of our community. And, as Baptists, I don't have to tell anybody listening to this podcast, you've heard the phrase said a bunch of times, we're better together. And that associational life that you talked about beginning in Charleston was a life of, how can we gather together as churches for the sake of missions, which is the idea of making disciples and expanding the kingdom. And then how can we grow our people up? How can we provide spiritual opportunities opportunities for spiritual growth and more to the point, education for those who would become our full-time servants in vocational ministry.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of things that we partnered together on. And, years have a way of sometimes diluting some of the strength of the vision. And while I know we've always held that in our heart, I think it's a great time. I believe I see God doing great movements within the pastors of our association churches And the spirit of collaboration is really just rising quickly to the top, and guys that are looking for those opportunities to collaborate with one another and to present the churches as a matter of kingdom unity. And so I'm really excited about all that entails with that. And so the next 90 days will be setting the stage for some more clearly defined steps coming quickly in January of 2026. And one of those things I'm excited about, there will be some opportunities for conferencing that's been discussed and was a part of our featuring process that we voted on back in May
Yeah.
of 2025. And just so many opportunities for our churches I'm looking forward to that will be rolling out in 2026. Again, just not enough time to talk about them all.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, talk a little bit about challenges. We've got 68 churches in our association, and so we know all pastors are different, and some pastors are difficult. I can be one of those. I know, as we all can be difficult from time to time. What are some challenges of associational ministry? Because Lee, you've been a pastor, you've been a youth pastor, and now for the last 2 years you've been in association work. People don't understand how different associational work is from the pastorate. There's so much that goes into it. What are some of the challenges with trying to get churches involved or pastors involved? And because contrary to popular belief, not every single church or pastor in our association is necessarily quote unquote involved.
Yeah, and here's the thing with that. I mentioned earlier, life happens with things, and we all know that saying very well. We've all experienced that. We've all woken up a morning and went and, maybe turned on the water, and the water didn't cooperate that morning, or tried to start our car and the car didn't cooperate that morning. And I could go on and on. So life happens in that way. Maybe even illnesses. We thought we were fine until we weren't fine, and so just so many examples, but it boils down to life. It boils down to scheduling. It boils down to a pastor. And again, Brady, to your point, you know this full well too. A pastor doesn't get up on Monday morning able to anticipate whatever calls are going to come that so and so has been taken to the hospital, or heaven forbid somebody passed away, and those type calls. And so there's so much of the pastorate that by no means are able to be scheduled. And so you guys have to deal with that. Pastors have to deal with that. And from the associational standpoint, what we're trying to do is keep churches in that partnership idea, in that posture of collaborative movement together for the sake of the kingdom, for the sake of affecting lostness, for the sake of advancing the gospel, and trying to have relationships with our churches and with our pastors in such a way that's productive to that end. And because, and I said this in our special meeting for the vote, the association doesn't tell the churches what to do. And we full well understand that. We full well understand we serve at the pleasure of the churches, and yet our task is to provide some sort of a common vision, some sort of a opportunity, again, to be better together. Not just say it, but to actually be better together. And so it's a bit of a challenge because you do have different ideas. You have different ministry philosophies. You have different communities and the makeups of those communities. All that comes into play. And so it's trying to figure out, okay, what is an overarching way, or what are some specific areas that we can do common work that churches can join together in. And so there's a bit of a challenge there. But here's the thing: there's also such an encouragement, because man, when you talk with a pastor, he's like, oh man, we're getting to baptize 5 today, or we're getting to baptize 1 today, or we're getting to baptize 25 today, or we baptized 60 people in the last so many months. And hearing what God's doing, man, it's such a blessing to be able to sit in the chair and to hear from all the churches what God's doing. And man, that's so encouraging. And then because I sit in that chair, I can turn around and for the pastor who's having a rough week or a rough day or a rough month, man, don't give up. Listen, God's at work. I see him at work in your church. And let me tell you what he's doing in our community. Don't give up.
That's
and
right.
That's such a joy to be able to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Seen that in our association and kind of how all that has occurred. So I know you're excited about 2026. And obviously we can't predict the future, but if 5 years from now, 2030, what's your vision for the LBA 5 years from now?
Yeah, so 5-year vision is stretching me just a bit right at the moment, because here's what I do know. I know that when churches are dealing with situations within membership, like average attendance at best, and then again, this is across the board. You're looking at 1.8 or 1.9 times a month when people are coming. I always love those point things. That's not really real. They're either coming once a month or they're coming twice a month.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
It's always interesting how those little decimals play into that, but it is what it is. It's math. So when you're dealing with that and you've got 4 Sundays or 5 Sundays in a month, and you're trying to figure out how can we better engage our people, how can we better serve them so that they will desire to be engaged? How can we, shine the light on the truth of the word so that they remember the hope in the gospel and the life that they've been called to in Christ? We've got a bit of a momentum shift in the way that church is being just kind of, I'm going to say, viewed and related to, that has been changing ever since we come out of COVID
Yeah.
a few years ago. And so I think we're still in many ways trying to figure out how to address some things that have come up out of that. And for me, it's definitely not a stop the bleeding kind of scenario, but it is something that demands more immediate attention. And so when I get to a 5 year, my best way to describe to you my 5 year is that we will have staved off whatever it is and whatever has been distracting from that consistent church engagement. More to the point, that consistent walk with Christ, that really is what feeds that consistent church engagement. So my 5 year plan is to have got to that place in 5 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of threw that one on you. I'm
Yeah.
reminded. I'm reminded as we have this conversation on the podcast when I was on a podcast you did for the association a while back,
Oh
and
yeah.
so totally forgot about that. Those were good times, and of course I remember when you pastored at Faith faithfully there for a while. Now at the association. So Lee, any thoughts you'd like to share with First Baptist Gaston before we get you out of here?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to tell you the First Baptist Guest and anybody else might be listening to that. I don't know who all you have that listen to your podcast. I pray it's a lot of people because I find it to be encouraging. But yeah, and man, I thank you for your support for the association, hands down. Thank you for your support. I don't just hear the folks of First Baptist Gaston saying that they support the association. I see them living that out. I see it, Brady, through you and I'm gonna tell you what, I'll take as many Beverlys as you guys want to send. I'll tell you that.
She's awesome. She is
We
awesome.
will take them, and she is definitely awesome. But again, my message to the churches is simply this: we want to be a family of churches that we're looking at our communities, how we can share the gospel. But man, we're definitely looking to see how can God use us to encourage others around the world that are in the fight with us, if you will. Our missionaries, our church planners, all those that are off in these different places. As we have a strong nucleus of churches here in the Lexington Association, we need to share the love, is what I like to say. And so, think about how as you support the association, that's a part of the bigger picture. But then always think about, okay, what might God be calling you to as a congregation? What missional partnership might He be calling you? Because we need the whole body. We need the whole body, and we need the eyes to be the eyes and the ears to be the ears, and all of God's people know where I'm going with that. So just be encouraged that we are here for you as an association, that we love you, that we are praying for you, and anything that we can ever do to reach out and help you be all that God has created you to be as a church, as a membership, as individuals for such a time as this. We stand here with you, ready to act as God leads, and we are waiting. We are waiting to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lee, for hopping on here for the Menorah podcast, episode 85. You're a busy man. I'm going to let you go ahead and get out of here, and thank you so much for your time. All right, Alan. Well, we got to talk a little bit with the new AMS. Your thoughts?
Well, that's really about the longest I've ever been able to talk with Lee, or at least listen to Lee. I do know of his most recent history in faith and then at the association. I think that he does have a daunting job ahead of him. And I think as we go forward, it is a pretty awesome task to, number one, be able to develop a strategy for reaching our area and be able to keep all of our churches supported as well.
Yeah, he's got a big task, and he's following a individual who was there 30 years, and we're going to honor Johnny Rumbo on November the 13th. That has changed. It was November the 9th, and yours truly is tasked with getting all that together, as if I didn't have enough else going on. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Episode 86 will be next week. We're going to be looking forward to some things as we wrap up the year. We're going to have a conversation, hopefully, before our annual Fall Festival with Travis Henderson. We're going to talk with him, get ready for that, and let him explain some things. And then later on, we're going to talk with Lee Sanford as he gets us ready for our fundraising event, our yard sale that's coming up in November. So some things coming down that we're going to try to use this podcast to get some of those guys on here to talk a little bit about that and get things going. And then after that, we're going to have a mini-series, another mini-series to wrap up the year as we get ready for 2026. It's hard to believe that it's coming fast, and preaching plans got to be put together, Bible reading plans, and all that stuff we do around here to end the year.
Yep, just keep in mind that football season runs through first couple of weeks of December, so
Yeah.
better get to work.
Yeah, I got to get to work. We got a lot to do. So anyway, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 85, Menorah podcast that seeks to share the light, speak light, and send the light of Jesus Christ across the airways of the internet. We will see you Sunday, Lord willing.